Okay, I think we'll just get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming today. So I'm Megan Curtin. I'm the project officer working on the Great Global Nurdle Hunt, and I'm joined here today by my colleague Heather, who's the project manager. Who you will be hearing from in a little bit. Just a few housekeeping things. So I just wanted to remind you all that this webinar is being recorded. So if you don't want to be seen on camera in the recording, just make sure your camera's off. And also just please remain muted throughout the presentations. There will be opportunities to ask questions and join the discussion. So if you do have any questions whilst people are presenting, please just use the chat function and we'll welcome you to ask your question at the appropriate time. So just a quick run through of what we'll be going through today. So I'll be kicking off the webinar today, introducing you to the Great Global Nurdle Hunt and going through why and how to take part. We will then be hearing from Saazu in the Maldives on how they've used nurdle hunts as an educational tool for their organisation Aloha Ufaa. And then I'll be handing back to Heather, who will be touching on how to use the hunt for different purposes and how to use the data from the hunt. We will then be going through some content from Sea Shepherd Australia. They ran a nurdle hunt campaign using nurdle hunts earlier this year. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here to join us today, but Heather will be running through that content. And then we'll be handing over to Xavier Sun from Taiwan Zero Waste Alliance to hear more about their nurdle hunt work as well in Taiwan. So just to begin with, hopefully a lot of you are already familiar, but if you're new to nurdles, what is a nurdle? Well, nurdles are small round plastic pellets, and they are the building blocks used to make almost all of our plastic products. So these tiny pellets are melted down to make all sorts of things, from bottles to sachets to wheelie bins. So they are really, really small and already microplastic when escaping into the environment. And there are trillions of these nurdles produced every year by the plastics industry. And the real problem with nurdles is that many of them are spilling throughout the plastic supply chain. So, this is plastic that is escaping before it has even been made into anything useful. So it's a huge waste of resources. So the infographic on the right there is just demonstrating a really simplified version of the plastic supply chain and where these spills can occur. And of course, as we know, spills can happen on much larger scales. For example, a lot of the shipping disasters that we've seen, I think probably the most well-known and biggest one happened last year in Sri Lanka. The Express Pearl disaster, unfortunately, spilled billions of nurdles onto the coastline. And once any nurdles are in the environment, they tend to spread far and wide. They usually end up in drains leading to the sea, and they can cause harm to a range of animals. They look a lot like fish eggs, and some research has even shown that they can begin to smell like food to some animals when at sea. So yes, unfortunately, a lot of animals have been found to ingest nurdles, including the baby turtle and fish seen on the screen there, which I thought was taken from Sri Lanka last year. So nurdles are nasty, and we want this pollution to stop. So that's where the Great Nurdle Hunt comes in. So we are from environmental charity Fidra, and we work to reduce plastic waste and chemical pollution in the environment. We're based here in Scotland, and the charity started out because our founders were living here by the sea and were concerned about nurdles washing up on our shores here locally. So that photo there is just showing nurdle pollution in the Firth Forth where we're based. And so what the Nurdle Hunt does is uses community science to build evidence of this nurdle pollution worldwide. So we ask people to head out to their local beach, search for Nerdles and submit their results online. 3 really easy steps, and I'll be going into a bit more detail about that in a bit. And then we share this evidence with groups worldwide to raise awareness and show government and industry that this is a problem and that we can force change. So the project began nearly 10 years ago now. So this is what our map looks like today. So we've had over 6,000 Nerdle hunts complete, covering 7 continents and over 50 countries surveyed so far. So I just wanted to very quickly take this opportunity to just say a huge thank you to everyone who has helped either run a Nerdle hunt or promote the issue so far, or people who are new to Nerdles and are willing to work on this issue. It's great, and you're helping us make a huge difference. So I just want to take you through why Nerdle hunting is important, and why you should take part. So Nerdle hunts help us build evidence of this pollution, which I've already mentioned, but this evidence is then really important because then it can be used to show the petrochemical and plastics industry that further action is needed. So Nerdle pollution is something that is clearly linked to industry. It is not a consumer waste problem. And Nerdle hunting can show that this pollution is all over the world and industry needs to step up to implement solutions. It also shows your local and national governments that you care about this issue. Governments are supposed to respond to issues that the public have concerns about, and they can use hard evidence to make policies to make industry change. Nerdle hunts are also just a great way of raising awareness of nerdle pollution, but also plastic pollution more generally in the media. This helps keep pressure on governments and industry to force change if this issue's in the media. And the Nerdle Hunt has also helped us create a global, far-reaching platform to shout about solutions as well. So the more people who work on this issue, the more we can share information about solutions to this issue. And the Nerdle Hunts as well can help you document impacts on your community and the environment. It helps us identify hotspots and identify where leakages are occurring. And it's also a great engagement tool as well to engage your community in plastic pollution, giving them an action to do. So yeah, those are just some of the reasons. And taking part is really simple. So yeah, if you've never done a Nerdle Hunt before, these are the key things to remember that are on this slide now. So the event that the Great Global Nurdle Hunt is going ahead from the 19th to the 17th of October this year. So the first step is to please choose a date and location in between that time period. And then all you need to do is tell us how many nurdles you find, where you find them, how long you were hunting for, and we ask for a minimum of 10 minutes, and how many people took part. And that's it. That is all you need to tell us. And then you just submit your data online at our website there, the nerdlehunt.org.uk. And I just still want to remind people as well that even if you don't find any nurdles, this is still valuable information for us to know. And so please do still submit your data to our online map. It's just as useful to know where the nurdles are not. So yeah, that's just one thing to remember. And also just a few safety pointers for helping you organise a hunt. So when choosing a location, we would encourage you to check our map to see where hasn't been surveyed yet. But if you are choosing a new location that hasn't been surveyed, it might not have been surveyed for a good reason, as in it might not be accessible and safe. So maybe do scout out the area first to make sure you can access it at the time you wish to conduct your nurdle hunt safely. Another key point is just to check the tide times as well for when you're doing your hunt. So the best time to Nurdle Hunt is after high tide, because nurdles tend to cling on to debris that's brought up by the tides. But we don't want you to get stuck out or stranded by the tides at times. And then just a few sensible things as well. Obviously, check the weather is safe. Choose a sensible meeting place if you're doing a group event, and always wear appropriate clothing. So collecting nurdles. So for this survey, I do want to remind you all as well that you only have to count the number of nurdles that you find. You don't have to collect nurdles if you don't want to, but we do understand that many of you will want to remove the nurdles from the environment, especially if you're doing a nurdle hunt alongside a beach clean. So we just want to remind you that nurdles can absorb toxic pollutants from the environment. So we would recommend you wearing gloves and washing your hands after handling nurdles. And just a few tips of where to find the nurdles on the beach as well. So a great place to start is amongst other plastic materials. Nurdles can cling on to things and be amongst other debris. Vegetation as well, so because they're so light and small, they tend to be blown to the back of the beach where the vegetation is, so that's also a good place to start. As mentioned, look amongst the tide line, and nurdles tend to be easier to spot on sandy beaches, but that's not to say that you can't look for nurdles elsewhere on rocky and stony beaches or even riverbanks. So you can do a nurdle hunt anywhere. They're just usually found on beaches, and they're easier to spot on beaches, but that's not to say that you can't. And yeah, you can take sieves as well with you to sieve out sediment to try and spot the nurdles more easily. Another method that some people use is taking a bucket of water and scooping the sediment in, because the nurdles tend to float to the top. And they can sometimes be hard to spot. So do make sure you just slow down and get close to the ground and take your time when looking for nurdles. But this is why we've used and produced our very handy Nurdle ID chart, which you can download from our website, which tells you exactly what is a nurdle and what isn't a nurdle. So these will be included in our participant packs that we'll be sending out after this webinar. So yeah, make sure you use one of them if you're new to nurdles. And finally, promote your hunt. Remember to share your hunt with us and share your story. You can get us on all the social medias, where even now on TikTok. And the main tag for the event will be hashtag Great Global Nurdle Hunt. And please do, as well as sharing photos and videos on social media, you can upload pictures alongside your data, and this, photos of nurdle pollution can be just as powerful as submitting the amount that you found. They can be really powerful tools to use as well in advocacy and policy work when using the data, so please do consider it. And yeah, if you can't organise a nurdle hunt this year, you can still take part by promoting this issue on social media through your organisational channels. So as mentioned, I'll be sending out the participant packs after this webinar to give access to you all, and within that there'll be a promotional toolkit that you can use, images, assets, and sort of taglines and things to really raise awareness of this issue and the event. So that's everything. That's just what I wanted to run through. So yeah, just remember, nurdle hunting is very easy. We'll send out resources to you. But yes, I'll be happy to take any questions now before we move on to our next speaker.
Welcome to put questions in the chat, or I will try and look for you if there's anyone waving. Was that already clear? I'm not seeing any questions. Great, excited to take part. Great, Catherine. We're excited to have you taking part as well. Okay, that's fine. I think we've got plenty more presentations coming up, and if any questions come to you throughout, please do pop them in the chat. The only other thing that it's worth mentioning is if you can't do a Nerdle Hunt during the Great Global Nurdle Hunt, we will forgive you and you can do it another time instead. So you can Nerdle Hunt anytime. So this isn't your only opportunity, but for the Great Global Nurdle Hunt, we just like to get as many people out from all around the world as possible within that month-long window. So yes, if you can't get one turned around in time, or you suddenly have restrictions in your country because of COVID or for other reasons, that's absolutely fine. Please just do a Nerdle Hunt when you can and when it's safe to do so. Great. So who have we got next, Megan?
Great. Yeah. So I think we're going to hear from Saazu Saeed in the Maldives. Yes. Hello. Would you like to share your screen, or would you like us to just share your slides? I do have them.
Yeah. Can you please, because I did it on my phone and it's very difficult.
No problem. Yeah, I can just click through the slides. Just let me know. There we go. I think that's your first slide.
For giving me this opportunity to share my Nerdle story. I call it a story because I'm not an expert of Nerdles. I'm just learning, and I'm from the ocean, but I live in the Maldives. So like everyone here, they all are from the ocean, and you all live in different countries. So I'm living in the most low-lying country called Maldives. So beach combing is something I do love to do on my pastimes. My professions are diving and surfing, so everything related to the beach and the ocean. So when how I found out about these Nerdles is I love diving. So when I'm not under the water diving, I also love diving in the beach. So that means I look for small things, and I look for different like shells, seeds, drift seeds, and all these things drifting from the different parts of the world. So when I walk on the beach, I find like interesting things, like not just the shells or the beautiful things coming from the ocean, from the corals, but also from different parts of the world. Like I find different seeds, beach, sea beans, and all these things. So I look for small things. So while I was looking for these small things, I found this pearl-like small tiny thing, and I started to upload these things and also I got interested in the tiny pieces of microplastics. So I'm aware of microplastics. So I also love the colorful, all the colors that's coming from the microplastic in the beach, because I promise myself not to take anything from the beach which are useful for the marine animals, like seashells or anything. So I started collecting the microplastic in a jar, and then I thought I have to educate people that this should be the things that we can take to home if you don't want to put it in the bin. But still, if you want something to be taken to home, it's a beautiful thing to collect all these different colorful microplastic in a little glass jar and take it to home. And then I started to find these tiny pieces of plastic, and I uploaded it one day on the internet, on social media. And one of my friends who works in a marine conservation organization told me that it could be the Nerdles. So then I started to search for the Nerdles. It was only an year ago that I knew about this, and then I started to look for the all the information. And this company, this a charity organization, Fidra, and the Nurdle Hunt and Pearl Protectors from Sri Lanka, and Checkmate from someone who's collecting all the nurdles to have a checkmate. So these are the people that I found and got information about these things. And I thought, and I learned that this is the small tiny lentil that's the raw material for everything plastic. So this little tiny piece of little beautiful thing that is coming is a hazard, and it's the beginning of the beginning of the plastic pollution of the world. So it's alarming, and I thought I should do something. And like with everyone, I need to do something. So in the beach, our beach is white. So it's not easy for us to search for the little white thing from the white sandy beach. So you need people to focus on it. And so the easiest group of people for me to do it with me was kids. So they love to join me and start collecting these things. So the kids I teach surfing, and I meet in the beach. So they got interested, and when I call it Nerdle Hunt, they were more interested and started doing this. And then when I started to upload amount of nurdles, and then the pearl protectors from Sri Lanka, then I knew about the fire, but I didn't know this was coming from the fire incident from the Pearl Express. And they reached me and said it could be that. So I started getting the information and everything from them as well. And it was helpful. So I thought I should also create an awareness and advocacy through this. And I started to use hashtags and tag people when I use the Instagram post. And this got the attention from our government of the Maldives. So the environment ministry people reached me that because it was alarming for everyone if it is coming from the pearl protectors, like the Pearl Express, or if it is Nerdles. And we have a very huge organization called it's the most biggest plastic pollution awareness place. It's Pale Maldives. They reached me and they wanted to create more awareness about this. So I thought, now I got the attention from the people that has to reach these things. So I need to start the education and awareness things. So I did a little slates and started to educate kids in days like Earth Day, Ocean Day, and in every event, I try to do a nerdle hunt. So people started to participate and register, and then everyone was interested in it. But every time, like you said, every time when we go to the beach, the tide, because we have high tides and low tides as well. And from the way our country is made, the wind direction and the tidal is different in every month or 2 months. It's like changing the direction of the wind. So if the nurdle is coming, if we see nurdles in January or February, we might not see in April, May, because the moving of the direction. So even if I had, the last time I had the nerdle hunt in July, no nurdles were found, but it was interesting because many people got the attention and they were aware of the nurdle. So it is the most important thing. And then I thought I should change it in a more fun way, because when people who don't know anything about nurdle, and when they search for Google, because Google is where we try to reach when we don't know anything. So when we search for Google, it's always when we write Nerdle, there's a sea glass coming. It's called mermaid tear, and Nerdles, which are the plastic pellets, is also called Nerdles. Mermaid tears. So there's two types of mermaid tears, which is the plastic and the glass. So I thought I should create a story to tell these kids about how these Nerdles are coming. So I started to tell a story before the before going for a Nerdle hunt, that this mermaid who lived long time ago collected everything from the humans, because the ships were, when there's a storm, the ships get wrecked, and things from the human belonging of the humans got into the ocean. So before it was glass. So it's everything which is coming to the beach is called mermaid tears, because it's all glass. It's beautiful. People collect it. But if there is a mermaid at this age, and if she is living and looking for human belongings, it will be plastic. And if everything comes drifting in the beach, it will be coming as tiny pieces of plastic or these lentils. So it's also called the mermaid tear. So that's the reason why I thought these two things were. So it got interested, and they wanted to find the mermaid tear, which is also the Nerdle, to keep our beaches clean. So that's the beginning of what I am up to now. But I think I need to do a lot of things. So that is like more of these awareness things upcoming. I have scheduled some Nerdle hunts, and I have also printed the slate that you about the Fidra that your place has about to collect the data. So that is like on my upcoming things. I will be doing that. So I hope as an individual, I'm also helping with this tiny thing, but the biggest problem in the earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saz. Sorry, we're struggling to find the unmute button there. Yeah, really interesting. And I think we've had a similar experience of children being particularly good at finding Nerdles. I think and really interested in it. I think it's because they can get closer to the ground and spot them. But yeah, it's great to hear your story. Does anyone have any questions? I'll have a look in the chat. I think we've had a couple of comments. Yeah, Andy from Strandliners has been saying great story. Sea beams, similar story here at Strandliners in the UK. We've also had a comment from Martin Vanden, who is from the Checkmate project that you mentioned. And yeah, he is actually an artist working on a big growing art installation, using Nerdles to raise awareness about plastic pollution. So I think if you are collecting Nerdles and don't know what to do with them, we do have a few tips in our participation packs. One of them we recommend would be to send them to Martin to help him grow his artwork. And yeah, just a few.
Oh, there's lots of love coming in for the presentation. Yeah, lots of thank yous. Excellent presentation, Saz. Well done.
That's great. I think if no one else has any comments or questions, we'll just hand over to Heather.
Yeah. Great. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the how we've used the Nerdle hunts ourselves at Fidra and how other organisations have been using it too. So, sorry, thanks. So beyond just doing the Nerdle hunt itself, there's lots of things you can do with Nerdle hunts, both at the event and after the event. And I think one of the important things to say is that look at all these Nerdle hunts that have happened, and each of those Nerdle hunts is different. Each Nerdle hunt is run by different organisations, they've got a different local context, and how you use and adapt the Nerdle hunt is up to you. So the Nerdle hunt is a starting point, but you can go on and do other things with it as well. So every single Nerdle hunt is different, and we've had over 6,000 Nerdle hunts so far. So there's lots of different ways of doing this. What probably keeps them all in common is that the Nerdle hunt is a combination of using data and people power, and we think that is a winning combination that brings about change. So whatever kind of Nerdle hunt you do, please submit your data, even if you don't find any Nerdles, and try and involve people if you can, even if it's just one person, even if it's just you, your voice still counts, and you're still showing that you care about this kind of pollution, and you're showing others that you care, and that will help bring about this change that we want to see. So there's different ways that you can make the most of your Nerdle hunt. There's using the data that itself, and if you want access to more data than just the data from your own hunt and other data that's around the world, obviously it's accessible on our map, but we have more data behind the scenes as well that you can access. There's also, think about not just the data, but as in the numbers of Nerdles collected, but also the images and the videos, and using the event itself as an engagement tool. We've heard already from some people that have managed to get some media coverage, and we've certainly seen that from Nerdle hunts that we've run, and sometimes even putting on Nerdle hunts specifically for the media. And then there's also things you can do with your volunteers or staff engagement, and we've had some corporate organisations use it as a team building activity, because it's a great way of getting people to work together outside and do something a bit different. Community engagement is another aspect, so engaging people that live close to the beach, but also the wider community as well. Maybe there's other groups bringing people to the beach that are from more urban areas and haven't had that experience yet. So it's a good activity to do on the beach. We've also used it to engage policymakers and take them on Nerdle hunts, but also sharing reports with them. And some organisations can be using it for supporter, donor or funder engagement. So inviting them along to a Nerdle hunt as well, because it is a really accessible activity and you don't need special training to take part. So what did the Nerdle hunts do for us here at Fidra and when we first started Nerdle hunting? Well, the first thing it did, it showed it was a big ongoing problem. It wasn't local to us here, and that people all around the world were having this problem as well, and hence why the Great Global Nurdle Hunt was born, really. But it also gave us credibility. We were quite a new organisation when we first started Nerdle hunting, and being able to collect that data really showed that we were a credible organisation built on evidence. And then we used that evidence and were able to share it, which gave us opportunities to do reports, to do webinars like this and meet like-minded individuals and organisations and follow up with conferences. So it gave us data to present. And then the other part of that equation, the people and the profile that we got from doing Nerdle hunts, it meant that we had a bigger profile in our local community. We made connections with other NGOs, some of which are on the call today. And I think the nice thing about Nerdles as well is they are microplastic, but they are visible microplastic. So it meant that social media was able to pick up this issue and you could get nice photos. And that was really useful for us in building our social media following. Similarly, we had a bit of media interest from local newspapers and then the BBC, and we started building more national press as well. And we started to get our local politicians, once they realised that people were latching onto this issue, they wanted to join us too for Nerdle hunts. So once we had this data and profile from the Nerdle hunts, what did we do with it? Well, we invited the media and politicians to join us for Nerdle Hunts. So on the picture there, that was the head of Marine Scotland, part of the Scottish Government here, with one of the Scottish Government officials. And we brought those two people out on a Nerdle Hunt. He was new in the job, and we said the first thing he should do is come and see this problem. We also took all of the results from the Nerdle Hunt, not just those that we'd done, but from all over the world, to COP26 when it was here in Glasgow. And we're also taking the results this year to the International Marine Debris Conference in Korea in next week. So we've managed to spread the message far and wide that this is a big issue around the world. We've used the data from Nerdle Hunts in policy briefings and in consultation responses, and really building up sort of global connections around the world, which has been fantastic. And so what happened after we'd done all that? Well, we've started joint work with NGOs around the world. Using the Nerdle Hunt has given us a good excuse to talk to you all. In Scotland, where we initially had our focus, the Scottish Government set up a working group on plastic pellets, and they sponsored a new standard trying to bring about industry best practice, so giving industry some guidance about how they could actually stop this from happening. We also managed to get our government involved with a number of different agreements. So there's the OSPAR Convention, which looks at the Atlantic, and there's a British and Irish Council, and then we got EU interest in legislation, so European interest in legislation as well. But we don't have all the answers. We're only doing Nerdle Hunts in the way that we've been doing them. We collect all your data too, but we know that there are other answers out there to solving the Nerdle problem. And we haven't solved it yet. So pellet pollution still needs to be stopped. And that's why we'd like as many different Nerdle Hunts and as many different ways of using the data as possible. So now we've got hundreds of organisations that are Nerdle hunting, and each organisation is different, so each Nerdle Hunt is different. And that, I think, is one of the strengths of the Nerdle Hunt. Organisations using it to raise awareness of microplastic and raising awareness of themselves as an organisation too. It's helping organisations gain support and gain data on plastic, but also gain data on people, which can be really important if you're doing fundraising or trying to develop your volunteers. You can get new people along that you maybe wouldn't have managed to get to before. It's also allowing organisations to really push for the changes that they want to see on plastic and use the evidence in all sorts of different ways. So we've seen lawsuits where NGOs have taken the evidence that nurdle pollution is there and said, look, maybe you shouldn't build a plastic plant here because there's already so many nurdles in our environment. So there's lots of different ways that you can use the Nerdle Hunt. Why do I think it works for organisations? Well, for a lot of people, and especially for some of our friends who are also in Break Free from Plastic, it's really on the message. It's on the messages that we've tended to agree. So it's visible microplastic pollution, so you can see it, which makes the issue a bit more tangible. It comes direct from the petrochemical industry, so consumers can't be blamed. So it's following that kind of break free from plastic message, that it's not about what we're doing as individuals, it's really up to the industry to solve these issues and to change their ways. The plastic pellets that we're seeing, the nurdles that are washing up, could be recycled or they could be virgin plastic, and that means that even green brands that claim that they are being very responsible and using recycled materials, they're still responsible for this problem. So I think that's again another message that we can't recycle our way out of this issue, even though recycling is very, very important, but it keeps us on message that actually these pellets will be a problem whatever they're made out of, because they're always made out of plastic. The other reason why we think it's quite on message is that it's not easy to clean up. It's great to do Nerdle Hunts as part of beach cleans, but they're very small. You won't be able to collect them all in many instances. So we think it adds up to the message that this must be prevented. We know when people are doing Nerdle Hunts, sometimes their volunteers can feel a bit despondent that they haven't been able to clean it all up, but that's why the data is important, and that's why all the work going on around it. The Nerdle Hunt is a first step. So I think it's on message for many organisations. And it's also really adaptable. So it's a minimum of 10 minutes, but you could turn it into a whole day event if you want. You only need one person to take part, but if you get more people, then great. You don't need any specific equipment because you are just counting the Nerdles. You don't have to collect them. And you can choose your own location. The other reason it's adaptable is you can do it anytime, but we'd really love you to do it in the upcoming Great Nurdle Hunt from the 19th of September to the 17th of October, but you can do it whenever you like. So that's why organisations are using it. That's what I wanted to say from Fidra, but I am going to present a few slides from Sea Shepherd as well, which is one of the other organisations that's been nurdle hunting. So they're really sad that they can't be here today, but I will just tell you a little bit about some of the things that they've done. So they've used it as part of their community cleanups across Australia. And in March this year, they particularly focused on remote beaches that hadn't been visited. And they were collecting data and entering this into their national database and doing this alongside some of their educational work and work with corporations. So they've been working on this, on nurdle hunts for a number of years, but this was a sort of a big effort that they had in March. One of the reasons that they found that it really works is it encourages participation in citizen science. And that's a key part of building their profile as well. And it's an education tool about nurdles. So doing a nurdle hunt helps you explain how the plastic industry works and why it can be a problem. It's helped them map the location where nurdles are having an impact on the environment and started to allow them to have discussions about plastic production and how it's transported and made. So it's also helped them show how ubiquitous microplastic is. So it has reached these hard to reach beaches where people don't go to. Again, it's that link to it not being a consumer problem. And it makes people, when you're actually doing a nurdle hunt, and this is similar to what Saazu was saying, makes people look carefully on the beach and find smaller items and opens their eyes to the amount of plastic in the litter. So they found that it's been really useful for giving them data about this global issue and helping them push for changes to stop these leaks. So I think that's some of the reasons why they found it useful, and again highlighting the fact that these can be easily mistaken for fish eggs because they look so similar, and the problems that plastic can cause and why animals might eat them. So they just wanted to encourage you all to join the nurdle hunt, which is great. I promise I didn't make this slide for them. So yeah, and I'm sure that they'll be happy to hear from you if you want to find out more about what they're doing in Australia. So that's it from me. I think, do I have time to take any questions?
Yeah, you probably do have a couple of minutes, Heather. Yeah, if anyone does have any questions for Heather. No. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So asking about tools for collecting and counting nurdles. So it depends on what kind of beach that you're on. So we've just been able to count them on some of the beaches just by eye, and just recording it on a piece of paper what we found. In some beaches you have huge numbers of nurdles. So sometimes when that happens, that's when you might want to start using sieves. You might want to start using tweezers, but even then it can be very, very difficult. So if you have to estimate, as soon as you get above about 1,000 nurdles, it gets very difficult to count them all. But if you have to estimate them, that's fine as well. Just make that clear that that's what you've done, because it can be really difficult to collect them all. And I don't want you to feel like you have to collect all the nurdles. But we found the best tools for dealing with nurdles is a sieve and some tweezers. But you can just go out there and see what you can see with the naked eye and what you can see just on the surface of the sand or on rocks, and that's fine as well.
Oh, I want to ask about the one made of wood. You know, is square or rectangular? The one to screen. How can I say, to ray? Huh?
Yeah. So the sort of the big sieves that are in a frame.
Yeah.
So those ones. So you can make those yourself, and some people find them quite useful. It depends what kind of beach you've got and what other debris is on the beach. But yeah, some people find those really useful of just using a bit of mesh. But even just a kitchen sieve we've used, and that can work.
Yeah, we've even seen some people for sort of bigger scale removal have used a mesh bin, so a bin with the sort of mesh or netting around, and they literally can scoop up massive amounts of sand or sediment. Yeah, so I guess whatever you prefer, really, whatever works well for you. You can also use a sort of square outline to help you estimate nurdles. If you are on a beach with unfortunately huge amounts of nurdles, you can sort of count how many are in that meter square, for example, and then times it by the length that you've sampled accurately. But yeah, estimates are fine though. So I hope that answers your question. Great. Okay, I think if there's no more questions, I think there are just a few more comments in the chat if people can. Oh, I think we've got another comment. Sorry, from Andy. Has there been any research on nurdles falling down holes between the stones? Some local beaches have 1 centimetre to 5 centimetre pebbles. Yeah, I think it is tricky, Andy, because they are probably, the amount of nurdles on stony and sandy beaches, stony beaches are probably underestimated, and we know that, because I mean there are more systematic sort of sampling methods out there for sampling microplastics on a beach, for example, which you could use for nurdles, but they take more time. And they sort of require, not just counting how many they are, they would require counting, the depth as well. So looking under sandy stones and stony beaches. But yeah, I can't think off the top of my head an exact research paper that has looked at the differences.
I think there's the amount. Yeah, I think there's been 1 in 5, so we can try and find that out for you, Andy, of what they actually did.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, and just some nice comments of people looking forward to getting involved again, which is great. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, I think we'll hand over to Xavier now for the final presentation. Xavier, would you like to unmute?
Yes.
Hello. Would you like to share your screen with your slides?
With my slides, share on screen. Okay, I'll try to do that.
Or we can do it for you if you're struggling.
If you can do it, that would be great.
Yes, no problem at all.
Thank you.
There we go. I might just have to, yeah.
There they are.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
super,
Yes. Yes, I saw that.
great, go for it.
Okay. So I'm representing Taiwan Zero Waste Alliance, and one of our main objects is to hunt the noodles. But I still know that there is a large petrochemical industries in Taiwan. It's called Formosa Plastics. So this is just a example of those. I don't want to say virgin, but newly made noodles in the left and also in the right. Of course, you can see there are different kind of shapes. For example, those in the left is like a disc, and those in the left is like a disc, and those on that is a cylindrical shape. That only depends on the different pelletizers that you're using. So next, please. Okay, this is I think I grabbed this in your email. So the red points indicates that something that I'd like to elaborate more in this conversation. That is recycled noodles. Next slide, please. So why noodles can enter the environment? There are two routes, and A is one route that Teresa in Japan also studied it, that they say there are millions and hundreds of noodles that will enter the environment just at the site of the petrochemical industry. So there are many mismanagement industries in mismanagement practices in those ministries. Next slide, please. So this slide shows that the Formosa plastic in Taiwan and the Formosa plastic in Point Comfort, Texas. As you might know that in 2019, they are fined by a huge number. Because of that, they are releasing the noodles to the Cox Creek. If you look at the Formosa Plastic, Texas, you can see that just right of the complex, you can see Cox Creek. There's a small creek, and when I visit, this one, yes. And when I visit Diane and her water keepers, they just show me that there's a huge amount of plastic beads just in this Cox Creek. So when I went back from Texas, I'm thinking about that. Actually, our Formosa plastic industry is industrial area is like twice or even three times larger than the Texas one. So I'm thinking that if there are also mismanagement, so I can see some of the leaked noodles. Oh, next slide, please. So this is what you can see one of the water keeper Ronnie Hamrick in the left, and just by they just using a fish net, and using once of the fish nets, they can get so much noodles that is on the right. So that is a Cox Creek near a bridge. That the time is 2019, and of course they are still chasing it, because although the Formosa is fined with a huge money, but they think they are still leaking those noodles. Next slide, please. Okay, now I'd like to show you that the magnitude of Formosa plastic in Taiwan. You can see it on the satellite image. That is a white arrow. You can see there's a area of white. That is the Formosa plastic complex. Next slide, please. So as you can see, this is a very huge petrochemical complex. It constituted maybe there are more than 400 chimneys in this industrial complex. So the red dot means that I went there and take noodle samples, because it is quite impossible to enter the industrial complex, because there are two guardian places. So I just went south. Is just a river away, the south one, and the north one is people can get access to it, and both one are very close by the by the wastewater flow. So I have to say that different from the Cox Creek, the south one is like the estuary is like a beach, and when I went there are just noodles on the ground. So I have me and my daughter once go there and pick up noodles. We can get like 100 and more noodles in 5 minutes. That is a huge amount. Of course, compared to the Formosa plastic in Texas, it's very low. But I think we have to deal with this problem. So the north side is adjacent to another water flow, and there's a small beach. When there's high tide, it was covered with water. But when there is low tide, I can just grab a handful of those plastic waste, and just a handful, I can get 42 noodles. So I'm thinking about maybe those noodles are all coming from Formosa plastics, but I cannot just say loud, because once there is a environmentalist, he said that there are a lot of air pollution, toxic air pollutions from Formosa plastic, and he was sued like $500,000. So we are always afraid of that, because they have this lawyer team that is very powerful. So next step, please. So Therese is a member of science officer in IPEN. So they have this paper that meteor pellets enter surrounding waterways from production site annually. So this is really happening, and past spills also occur during transport like that we observed in Sri Lanka. and the main pollution is local, but long-range transfer may also be possible. But according to my investigation sites, I think they are coming out of Formosa plastics. So there actually is a regulatory framework that can prevent this event. So the author, including Teresa, call for higher accountability through control programs. Next slide, please. So there, another thing I like to talk about is that they are also Nerdles, but they are recycled Nerdles. So next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. This one is just a highlight of the Sri Lanka traffic accident. Next slide, please. That is what happened in Sri Lanka. Next slide, please. And the next one. And the next one. Okay, there's another way of nerdle leakage. In Taiwan, we have many of this kind of repelletizing factories that take recycled plastics and make them into new, make them into Nerdles. So you can see a lot of those gray, red, the green and the white ones. They are all recycled. In fact, recycled Nerdles, and I also found many of them during my field trip. Next slide, please. So this is a IPEN project I have involved in that. They are going to they are going to examine the persistent organic pollutants in those recycled Nerdles. Next slide, please. So as you can see that the green ones are brominated flame retardants, which we all know that they are hormone disruptors, and the blue ones are UV stabilizers, and there are at least two kinds of UV stabilizers are categorized as hormone disruptors, and there's of course BPA. As you can see that Taiwan has a lot of pollutants in this, and I just went to the repelletizing companies and asked them for some Nerdles and send it to IPEN to see how many pollutants are there inside the Nerdles. For example, BPA is a element of polycarbonates. So polycarbonates is actually a polymer made by BPA. And of course, UV flame retardants and UV stabilizers. Next, please. So this is just a number of EDCs. We can see that Taiwan is the second one from the right. So actually, we have this nodal problem, including the newly made ones, and those are recycled and repelletized ones. I can see both of them in the coastal area of Taiwan. I just like to point out that actually there are not just the so-called virgin pellets, but there are also recycled, repelletized noodles. So those noodles are also we can easily find them in the coastal areas. So that pose a important important toxic problem. So next, please. So this is, I believe you have already known that, because microplastic, the definition of microplastics is that in every dimension, in each dimension, it is less than 5 millimeters. So they can enter the plankton easily, and by accumulation, they will go on the top predators. Of course, humans are also a top predators. So next one, please. Oh, that's it. I have included the recycle and repelletizing noodles because they are more toxic. For example, the IPAN one wants us to gather the HDPE recycled plastics, but if it's really HDPE, there shouldn't be BPA or other things in it, because BPA is a monomer of polycarbonates. So there is a huge problem in separating the recycled plastics. So I'd like to point out that instead of the so-called virgin plastic pellets, we also have to look carefully about those recycled and repelletized noodles that is also I can find a lot in our coastal area. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Xavier. Yeah, really interesting presentation there, and I think it just, yeah, it highlighted what Heather touched on earlier by saying that we're not going to recycle our way out of this problem, unfortunately, and that, you know, we need to make sure that solutions are embedded across the full plastic supply chain, including where pellets are recycled, where plastics are recycled back into pellets. So I think we have just run over there by about 10 minutes there, but if anyone has any quick questions for Xavier, please put them in the chat. I think if not, I think we've just had some good comments, or maybe a new message.
Just lots of thank you, Xavier. I think people found that really shocking as well as interesting. So I think you've shocked them into silence about how bad recycled pellets are. But yeah, but BPA and flame retardants are some other projects that Fidra work on, and yeah, they're very dangerous chemicals. So it's really distressing to see such high concentrations in pellets, particularly those in Taiwan. That must be very difficult to deal with. Right, I think that's all of it. Lots of thank yous. Yeah, Tangerine Blue saying that they've done work on plastic pellets, and they've looking to try and work with industry to reduce plastic pellet loss from industry in the first place. So there's lots of other organisations working on pellets as well. So don't ever feel alone in your nurdle hunts. And if you're struggling, then yeah, there's lots of people in the network to reach out to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, everyone. I think we'll finish up there if no one else has any more comments. Yeah, thanks so much to the presenters, and thanks to everyone for attending. So as mentioned, I will be sending out more information about the Great Global Nurdle Hunt and how to get involved very soon. But yeah, we look forward to hopefully meeting again, and yeah, hopefully you'll all join in this September the 19th. And yeah, please do just get in touch if you have any more questions or queries for us. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.